All right, I want to welcome Damar Phillips to the Leadership Puzzle. Damar started out his career in Walmart in finance, ironically, similar to my background. And he found his true passion in HR and worked his way up to VP of HR. And he really is a HR visionary. And I think everywhere that Damar has worked, he has made a name for himself as a trusted and strategic HR leader. So I want to thank Damar for joining us today.
Thanks, Jeff, for having me. This is an amazing opportunity to just share, some of my experience with the audience and trying to help in any way or any capacity that I can. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'd love to jump into our conversation. We're really trying to help leaders understand the strategic value that HR can bring to the organization, should they choose to tap into it. And I think a lot of leaders have a misconception about the value of HR. A lot of them think, oh, they're the policy police, or oh yeah, they're just the back office. I don't want to think about HR. But how, in your career, how do you see HR really being that partner that drives business outcomes, not just payroll processing?
Absolutely, Jeff, and you're absolutely right. So often, I think HR gets the negative connotation of being the police. Hey, I got to fire someone or go through a reduction in force or rift, or you're in trouble, so let's go work on a performance improvement plan. Those types of things. But truly, the value of human resources is in the relationships that it forms with people and in helping them to understand the value of their career and not looking at the opportunity as just a job. But for leader to leader, it comes down to how strategic can you truly be. One of the areas is in strategic workforce planning, for example, and looking at how labor impacts the projects that you have on tap for the organization. Whether you're going through a merger and acquisition, do you have the resources available there? Or even if you're trying to put, widgets in boxes to be able to get them shipped, you need to understand the value of one shift versus two shifts versus three shifts, the cost of what that adds to the business, and the true value that it has in the bottom line. But you're absolutely right on the mark, Jess. We're not just a one trick pony, so to speak. We can do things, walk and chew gum at the same time, and help the organization to achieve the financial goals that it has, but also the engagement goals that it has with the organization.
Yeah.
Um, Most businesses want to be the best place to work, right? You want to be on those lists of great for minorities or great for women or great for, LGBTQ, whatever it is. You want to attract the best talent to come to work, and human resources is an enabler of that, and actually the stewards of how to get the most out of the company culture, one employee at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you go about uh, you know, really building that relationship? I mean, so if our leaders are listening, what should they expect from a strategic HR in terms of that relationship building process?
I will say they should expect the leader to be all up in their business, because that's truly where the value can be achieved is in understanding first what the business of that leader is. If you're talking to a marketing executive, you have to understand brand. You have to understand, the workload that's assigned to that organization and what they're trying to accomplish. If you're working with a sales organization, well, what are they selling? How are they selling? What are the compensation structures that go along with it? And so for me, I start by trying to sit in the seat or stand in the shoes of that leader who I'm trying to assist or I'm trying to help, and offering how can I help you as a way to see their business in total. It starts with conversations. It starts with having a seat at the table during those critical meetings, not just to observe, but to have an opinion and to be able to help them think through things. Um, I liken myself to a sounding board. You
Mm.
know, I am a safe space for you to come into my office. Let's talk about this. This is what's on my mind. Can I just run this by you? It's better for you to do that and interact with me as the HR person who's not going to judge you for how you thought about an idea or how you came up with an idea, but who could also provide some counterpoints or some opinions about how to accomplish it before you take that to your supervisor or take it upstream to to sell that idea.
Yeah.
If we can talk through it, if we can vet through it, then I've helped you to be able to work through your issue. Um, I've helped you to be able to see a different side of that issue, and then you can go back, tweak the little plans that you have, make sure that they're executive ready prior to presenting it to your leader, and then hopefully get a greater opportunity for buy-in because you've had someone who was free of, you know, I'm not charging it to your heart, I'm not charging it to your head. We're just having a conversation, and it's a safe space for you to be able to communicate in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned kind of that seat at the table, and I think every HR leader has a different, kind of path and story of, that one thing that they did for a leader that all of a sudden just opened the door. I remember when I was living in Japan, the president of Intel Japan came to me and said that he had a opening speech that he needed to give in English, and he was a Japanese native, so English was his second language. And he said, I really want it to be an Obama-esque opening speech, really engaging for people, and
That's a high bar.
a really high bar. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. I'm like, what, a week or two? He's like, no, I need it by tonight.
Oh wow.
So I literally cleared my
No pressure.
calendar, went and figured out what the conference was about, and then of course, this was way before Chat GPT, so this was me
Yeah.
just building it out on my own, and got it to him on time, uh, and up to that point, he was cordial, and he allowed me to. I mean, I attended the meetings and stuff, but there wasn't
Sure.
that seat at the table strategic thought partner. And once I delivered that, it was a resounding success. It,
Absolutely.
it was just like, okay, Jeff-san, you need to come and help me with some other stuff too. And so it wasn't HR, but
Right.
it's what the leader needed at the time. Any good stories on your side on how that transpired?
Oh, sure, absolutely. But before I talk about that, you know, he may have even helped to plant the seed for your book, The Talent Advantage, right? Because helping to be able to formulate a story and become a great storyteller, that is an art.
Yeah.
Um, I remember at Walmart in my early days, and Walmart wasn't my official first job, but I don't talk about the first job because the company got bought out, and you know that was 4 years, and all it did was teach me about how to become a professional should I get another opportunity once that company sold,
Right.
which I'm grateful for. But at Walmart, we had some amazing leaders. Like I have sat in the room with greatness from people like Lee Scott, who is the former CEO, Mike Duke, who succeeded him, to Doug McMillan, who is the current CEO, to people like Claire Babineau Fontenot, who is the CEO of Feed in America. Like these people invested in you, right? And as a lower level manager, I didn't deserve to be in the room with these folks, right? I hadn't done anything spectacular in my career, but they saw something in me that gave me confidence to continue and even to change paths. And so there's a story from Claire. I was in the accounting. You mentioned the finance area. I did start in the finance area with profit sharing 401k, the financial benefits of things, and then moved into corporate accounting. And corporate accounting for me, while it allowed me to manage people in large teams, I had 46 direct reports as an entry level manager, which is way too many. But it's Walmart, and so everything is supersized. Um, I was frustrated in my career. I had felt like I had given the keys over to someone else to drive my career outside of myself,
Right.
and that frustration, was my own. And she sat me down and she told me, Demar, I can tell you're frustrated. And we had that type of relationship. She was a mentor of mine. She still is to this day. And sometimes you need that mentor that's going to kick you in the seat of the pants
Oh yeah.
and tell you, you're being stupid, bonehead move, Demar. Or, hey, you know what? I'm going to be your cheerleader today. You're doing great. Keep it up. But she sat me down and we were having a conversation about my frustration. And she told me what has stuck with me this whole time. She said, Demar, don't run away from anything. You should be running towards your next opportunity, but you
That's great
shouldn't be
advice.
running from where you're at. And, I was just floored because I was frustrated in the position. I thought I should have been promoted to different positions. I had applied multiple times and it felt like nothing was going. But she said, you should be running towards something. And it changed in me fundamentally how I looked at opportunity and how I decided to take my career in my own hands and run with that. And so that's my challenge to leaders. Sometimes, whether you're a people leader or if you're going to be an individual contributor, the message is the same. You should identify what you are passionate about. I hated accounting. I love people. That conversation gave me the confidence to pursue a change. And that change was to get back within the HR function and to accelerate my career growth. And that's what I did. And so that's why I'm here today as Vice President People Americas for RS Americas, which is an amazing global distribution company. But it's because someone took the time to invest in me and sowed a seed in my life, not in my work, not in my career, but in my life. Don't run away from anything. You should be running towards something. And I appreciate that from her, that message, and I share it freely with anyone who will listen. And it helps to reframe your mental thoughts on what you're doing.
Yeah. No, it's a great kind of thing to keep in mind as you're progressing your career. Uh, I remember earlier in my career, I heard this. I don't know who said it, but work gravitates to the most competent.
Mm,
And I thought, okay, you know what? That's something that I can grab a hold of. Simple, I can
yeah,
remember it, and
that's powerful.
I just need to be the most competent, and work will come to me. And
Yeah.
sure enough, you probably experienced the same thing in your career.
And even with my last opportunity, I had applied for a lot. And, Evolve HR had been supporting me in my search and, here's opportunity. Are you interested in this, interested in that? So Jeff, thank you so much for all of that. But the opportunity that came to me, and I had two of them and received offers from both of them, were people who had saw me on LinkedIn
Hmm.
and felt, wow, I can relate to your story, your path, your experience. And to this day, I'm a firm believer that, our steps are ordered, and not to make this overly religious, but I believe there's a higher power that has control over most things. We just
Yep.
have to let go and allow God. Um, and because of that, the opportunity presented itself in His timing, not my timing, but it was perfect timing.
Yep.
And things like that happens for a reason. So when you talk about work gravitating towards those that are most competent, I think it's also those who are most ready.
Yeah.
And people are ready at different stages of their career and their life.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's great. I think kind of you just started a new role, and we both have been new to role in a number of
Yeah,
companies. Um, I really believe that strategic HR starts from the CEO and the head of HR, whether that's a VP of HR, whether it's a CHRO,
hmm,
depending on the size of the company. And
yeah,
then it emanates down from there, right? Because if the CEO is not on board that people and talent are important, then it can be a little bit harder.
right,
I always like to start, especially with organizations that may not really understand the value of HR.
yeah,
So if we're talking to those leaders who may not really have that concept of what HR can bring, I mean, you just really demonstrated the value of what a good relationship partnership can be and whatnot. Um, but I like to start with talent reviews, something simple, everybody
yeah,
gets, past performance, future potential. Let's have a conversation. Let's
right,
help leaders understand how to accelerate the growth of their top talent. We know top talent, can produce anywhere from 2 to 8 times more, results than, kind of
yeah,
your average employee. And so they can almost see immediate results when you get them to reframe their mindset on that. What about you? What do you think are, what's that one thing or two things that, someone stepping into an organization as an HR leader could go, okay, if I take this baby step, it can help me make sure that I have that seat at the table.
I think, and it's not indicative of this role, it's a prior role, but I had gone through a whole interview process, had been part of the organization, and had started day one, two, three. But before I received the offer, every leader around the table were like, "Hey, Demar, we are ready for change.
Hmm.
We are so ready for you to come in. You have a clean slate. Uh, go do what you think you need to do to help improve the organization." I say that and state that as a cautionary tale because not everyone that says that they're ready for change are truly ready for change, right? And so I would say, something that I try to employ is a look, listen, learn type of a strategy over the first 90 days. Because guess what? The problems are going to be there. You're extremely low hanging fruit. You're going to knock out of the way anyway. But before you enact a drastic, huge organizational shift or change, wait a minute. Have conversations
Mhm.
with the leadership.
Yeah.
Truly understand whether or not they are open to your ideas and your approach, and take more time to build in buy in as opposed to just coming in like everybody wants to make an impact within the first 90 days. For executives, guess what? They hired you. You don't have to prove anything. They know you have the technical competence to do the job. So sit still,
Yeah.
listen for a moment, pick your spots when you're going to participate, and then execute based off of what you've learned over the first 90 days. And so in my role now, yes, I'm doing the things, I'm picking up projects, I'm participating, I'm making sure that I'm being accountable to the organization and why they hired me. But I'm not trying to go in and just wipe out everything
Yeah.
and reset the table stakes.
Yeah.
We have time to be able to do it together. And if you build those relationships, if you have those conversations, the level of trust in you as a leader will skyrocket,
Mm.
and you'll be able to implement changes that you need that will impact your organization in the future based on you sitting, looking, listening, and learning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I think, a lot of people they want to jump in. Let's get going. You hired me to do this job. I'm gonna
Right.
start having results day two. And there was a concept that I learned when I was doing a lot of project management before I got into
Hmm.
HR, And it was take the time to do the planning of the project,
That's right.
um, because it'll take longer and it feels like, oh my gosh, I need to be doing something. But
Yep.
that planning, analyzing, making sure that all the ducks are in a row, so that when you go into the implementation phase, you're not then in this, you know, uh, forever upgrade cycle, fix the bug cycle, because you've already thought about everything and worked
Right.
it out up front. And so what I've heard you say there is you go, you build those relationships, you listen to what their pain points are, what their dreams, aspirations, not
Hmm.
personally for their dream or for their team.
That's right.
And then you can then start baking that into a 12, 24, 36 month strategy going forward.
Right. Yeah, it's a more strategic way of implementing the changes that you also support by having a plan, a well thought out, well developed, people are on board with you type of a plan instead of coming into the organization creating, enemies where there shouldn't be.
Right.
We're all friends, we all work for the same organization, we should all be wanting the same thing, which is opportunities for our employees, making sure we take care of the customer, financial security, growth of the organization, those types of base things. But you don't have to solve it on day one. No one expects you to come in and wave your magic wand and all of a sudden, everything is perfect. No, it's a journey. So enjoy the ride, enjoy the process, build relationships along the way, because that's an essential part of not only your development, but the credibility that you have, whether it's with board of directors, whether it's with the C-suite, but more importantly, with the employees.
Yeah.
No one wants to see someone come in and just wipe out a whole team because, oh, well, you know, I just needed to do that because it's going to save money.
Yeah.
That's not the way to build, relationships, nor is it a way to build affection for you as the individual, and then more importantly, you as the leader.
Yeah. No, that's great, great wisdom for any HR leader that's really wants to build that strong foundation of
Yeah.
strategic HR. I'd like to take a slight shift in the conversation. I read a Corn Ferry article just this last week, actually. They did a survey of CEOs, uh, asking them about hybrid versus remote versus 5 days in the office
Yeah.
kind of work. And what they found was only 34% of the CEOs expected workers to be in the office 5 days a week, which is
Hmm.
a significant drop from the 62% from last year. Yeah, I think maybe the CEOs are just getting worn down, by the incessant, no, I don't want to be in there 5 days a week. But
Right.
what's your thoughts? Is hybrid here to stay? Are we gonna continue to see a shift away from 100% remote and do more of the hybrid? What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, great question, because in the new environment we do have a hybrid work environment as well. There's variations of that. I believe hybrid is here to stay. There is no going back pre-COVID um, to 5 days a week unless you choose to do that, which again is your choice within a hybrid environment to be in the office as many days as you prefer. I think the thing that is going to pick up some momentum is the 4 day week, 410s or 980s. I
Hmm.
think that's going to pick up some because it's now not only the you have a hybrid work environment, but now you're figuring out within that environment how to influence a flexible working schedule, right? The problem that exists is that we still have not created enough measurement tools to be able to tell if someone's being overly productive. So you still have
Right.
leaders with old schools of thought that says, if I see you, then therefore you are productive. If I don't see you, then you're not productive. We also have to get rid of the bias around promotions, because it's easier for someone who is in office to get promoted than someone who is remote.
Right.
It's not right. It's just kind of the way that things are right now. And I think as HR, strategically, we have to figure out how to change and move the narrative forward. I think Sherm could play a great role in this. Johnny Taylor, the CEO, President Sherm, that's a great white paper to be able to try to put out there to help influence some of these businesses, because you can be an amazing leader uh, and be looked over because you're not, shaking hands with colleagues twice a week. Um, the other thing that I think the reason why hybrid isn't going away is that a lot of businesses, due to COVID, hired remote employees to take care of their customer base. Those remote employees are in different time zones, they're in different area codes for sure. And so to all of a sudden say now you have to be in office, you're going to have high turnover. Those employees who signed with the organization because you did offer flexibility are going to look for another organization to continue on with that
which is
flexibility.
happening.
And so it is. And, it's a very real legitimate issue and concern. And so, a very long winded answer to say, yes, I believe hybrid is here. And I think the future of work is truly finding out how to be more flexible within a hybrid environment as opposed to the hybrid question in and of itself.
It's really a fascinating discussion because um, uh, we've had, call it, remote teams as long as there's been international business, right? You and I both, I think you ran global
Hmm.
mobility for Walmart. So I mean, it was not uncommon that we would have teams in Europe and Asia, and we're trying to pull together. And we had these charts on, okay, well,
Yep.
7 a.m. Pacific time is
This is how
actually
you
a
have a phone
decent
call.
time, right? To have a
Yep.
phone call, and it was all phone based.
That's right.
Now we have Zoom and Teams and whatnot that help um, to pull folks together. And so even in the remote world with the video, it helps. But I
Hmm.
got to tell you, there is something about you know having the opportunity to see you in the hall and go, oh, Damar, I had this thought. What do you think? Or,
Yep.
hey, Damar, what are you doing for lunch? Let's grab some lunch. Let's build that relationship,
Oh,
which
absolutely.
you can't do over video.
It's definitely more, it's harder to do that, right? And, engagement takes a hit, culture takes a hit, the synergies around, hey, just brainstorming ideas, that takes a hit. Hey, come to my office and, oh, you're not here, I'm sorry. You know, it gives rise to more tools around scheduling than people
Yeah.
ever have before, right? It used to
Yep.
be just your calendar and you go plan and book somebody. Now, no, you have to have this software that can kind of do it for you, because if you got to get 50 people into a meeting and they all have different priorities, that's gymnastics. It's an
Oh yeah.
art. And, my EA works for a lot of executives because now they are doing more. It used to be a one-to-one relationship with an executive assistant. Now they're taking care of five, could be up to 10 executives, because it's a remote environment and they're the only ones that can manage the tables. And so, it's just the way people work is changing. And I think for us, HR should be on the forefront of policy creation that helps to enable those things. We should be pushing back on the perception that, you have to be in the office to be effective. And should we be trying to build out the performance criteria for KPIs that can measure someone's productivity so that each generation has what they need when it comes to being able to measure the effectiveness of an employee back to the business.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's I think I think the conversation will continue, but I suspect, you're right. We're going to settle in on this
Hmm.
hybrid, whether it's 2, 3, 4 days in the office. Uh, I mean, I love the idea of a 4-day work week, which I know in the UK that's gotten some traction over the last year or so. Um, but I mean, I think there's that balance, and HR leaders are going to have to figure out
Right,
how do you really help teach leaders and employees how to maximize the time when you're together.
right. And I think the other caveat, not to just throw a bomb and then for our time will be, you have to ponder this, but as you have remote teams and then companies have recognized holidays,
Mm.
right? Whose schedule are you on? Like, you know, are you based in the U.S.? Are you based in Mexico? Are you based in China? And which period of benefit are you compared against? Like, those are some questions that we have to figure out, right? And if you lead an international team, but yet you're paid out of U.S. payroll and you recognize U.S. holidays, well, guess what? You're working when your team isn't, and that's not effective at all. So there's a lot of work that's still left to be done on a lot of different concepts, but
Yeah.
hybrid is one of those nice ones because guess what? You can be just as productive, and I think the benefit of COVID, if there is one, is that it forced organizations to rethink how they work.
Well, and COVID also supercharged the Zoom and the Teams, because otherwise it was WebEx, which was
Right.
super expensive and not
Mhm.
you had to go to a WebEx room,
Right.
or maybe Skype, which had all kinds of security issues that most IT CIOs didn't want to bring into the environment. So um,
That's something else, isn't it?
yeah.
I actually had forgotten about those two.
Well, I just remember because I had a meeting a couple weeks ago and someone used WebEx. I'm like, is this still around?
Exactly. Microsoft didn't buy them out.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, Tamara, I have one more question. I'll let you go. We could
Sure.
probably talk a whole lot longer, but um, I heard a term recently that I found kind of interesting. It seems like every couple of years a new leadership style emerges. I mean, last few years it was inclusive leadership, and servant leadership has been certainly around for a while, and I know you and I probably ascribe to that one pretty heavily. But this idea of purpose-driven leadership seems to be kind of the latest, right? It's it's
Yeah.
it's really about where people want to be associated with leaders that have a strong core value that they can associate with, that's tied to the organization, and that there's a purpose beyond just the let's get the most revenue, EBITDA, net,
Yeah.
margins and whatnot. What do you think about? Have you heard of this? And what's your thoughts on it?
Ironically, I have heard of it. And at the time, it wasn't called like purpose driven leadership. But I read a book called People Strategies. And in People Strategy, it talked about three things that are central to the new employee, right? And it was purpose, it was growth, and it was community.
Hmm,
And those things intersect with the millennial slash Gen Z generations
nice.
because they are aligning themselves with the social aspect of work.
Right.
I want to be involved with something that's bigger than who I am. I want to be involved in the community. I want to make sure that we are, working for an organization that is a good corporate steward of the environment, climate change, all these things that are geopolitical forces on the good side. They want to be aligned with that. And so
Yeah.
I love purpose driven leadership because you should be aligned, at least in my opinion. You should be aligned with the organization that you're working for. I think that helps you to look at it as not being a job, but a career.
Yeah.
And so if you espouse the same values, which, you know, one of the reasons I love working at the place that I do is because my personal values align with the organizational values. And
Right.
we didn't know each other prior to the interview process, right? And so that to me means that businesses are finally taking it serious, that we need to create something that people can be proud in. You know, back in the 60s, everyone worked for an organization. They were proud to go to work, right?
Yeah.
You know, you'd see the commercials. You'd have the milkman who was proud to be a milkman, or you'd have the factory worker who was proud to go to the factory. It was hard work. It was honest work, and people were respected for their craft.
Right.
I think every generation kind of shifts and changes. I think now we're in that same period where the younger generations want to feel attached to the mission and the vision and the purpose of the organizations with their work. So to me, it's a fantastic development. Don't know everything about it, but I can respect the fact that, you know, if someone wants to feel like their organization is an extension of them, more power to them.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years ago, Jim Collins and Good to Great, he said that and people wanted to be follow a leader that can paint a picture that's bigger than themselves.
Right.
And I think Marcus Buckingham, found the same in his Gallup research. And so I think 20 years ago, when we were kind of rising through the ranks, that something bigger than ourselves was more about the products or services of the organization. It's like, oh yeah,
Right.
I was like, oh, I love being part of Intel because
Yep.
they're changing the world with the microprocessor, right?
Yep.
And now it's I want to be part of an organization that is helping the climate or the community or something that's, it might be a part of the product or service, but it's
Yep.
bigger. It's for the population, not just for the good of the company.
Absolutely. And you know, the the premium is placed on empathetic leadership. You know, the relatability of the organization back to the people, back to the community, those types of things, or back to the issue that's trying to be solved. So more power to those who coined that phrase, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about it as the months and years go on, because I think it's a value add back to society overall.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So any leader who's listening, check that out. What was the name of that book that you had read?
It was called People Strategy.
People Strategy. So, maybe not coined the same way, but the same concept. So
Yeah.
check that out. Well, Damar, I had so much fun chatting with you today, and your insights and wisdom have just been fantastic. Hopefully, you'll come back and join us.
Anytime, Jeff. Anytime.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have today on the Leadership Puzzle. And remember, your leadership journey is not about having all of the pieces, it's about how you put them together. If you've enjoyed our conversation today, be sure to subscribe, like, and share. And remember to leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. As always, keep challenging yourself, stay curious, and solve your leadership puzzle. Until next time.